Welcome back to No Hair, All Heart. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, reading from Jonnie, Fazoolie, and the Transfinite Reality Engine. We are on section Sweat Home, Chicago. The Uber ride from O'Hare Airport to his South Loop digs was somber and stressful. His black cat with white mittens slept soundly in his carrier, rubbing it in. Must be nice, a pussy's life. Feet back on his filthy office desk, chomping on a rank stogie, squeezing a stress ball with his free hand and flipping the pages of a graphic novel with the other, Jonnie tries and fails to chill. While picking up a fifth of Jack at the airport duty-free shop, Fazoolie noticed on a book rack a leased seller entitled The Lover's Guide to the Infiniverse. Exciting and pissing him off. Another idea stolen. How did they know about his super cool and, as far as he knew, unique Infiniverse spin on the otherwise boring and overused multiverse? He should have copyrighted. A pro at borrowing others' ideas, Jonnie knows every trick in the book. And when fucker instead of fucky has leaned on the law to break it, his lawyers going for broke as he scammed them too. At trial, they have hurled baseless arguments alleging public domain, independent creation, fair and de minimis use, limited access, scenes affair, false permission, statute of limitations. Eventually, his plaintiffs gave up in court, like Jonnie gives up everywhere else. The suits dropped or fading into oblivion because he never actually designed and built any viable product. Most of Fazoolie's legal worries are instead from his conned investors who've gone after him for fraud, breach of contract and fiduciary duty, and deceptive business practices in Illinois. Being on the receiving end of a perceived intellectual property rights ripoff, however unfounded, should heighten Fazoolie's sensitivities and accountability for doing the same, but doesn't. Jonnie instead thought of himself in illustrious company with Douglas Adams, whose hitchhikers must have been ripped too. Curious, Jonnie shoplifted the LGI, then considered them even. After all, ideas swirl with such volume and intensity that nobody knows where they originate, how they propagate. Impossible to predict what goes viral, let alone plan it. Content is contextual. Speaking of which, Jonnie isn't sure what the fuck is going on far as the plot goes, but enjoys the tension of knowing enough to not know, and likes the shifts from description to narration to exposition. The premise. Existence is enormous, but if people searched hard and long enough, everybody could find their special somebody. The guide helped lovers by solving riddles, providing clues. Kicking back in his office and settling in, Jonnie has gotten to the part where this guide first appears in the novel, taking the form of a graphic novel the protagonist finds in an airport shop. Drawing no connections to his own life or commenting on the eerie coincidences here, Fazoolie flips through the hand-drawn cartoons and laughs at the anti-hero, a misunderstood asshole. He also digs how the story is driven by its characters rather than just zany ideas. Jonnie loves fantasy and science fiction, but gets annoyed when these stories are about things instead of people. The characters' goals and challenges are also clear. Drama happening organically as they struggle to get what they want. The action happens for the most part in real time, scene by scene. Far as he can tell, this adventure is all about an all-powerful bad gal whose brain evolves within the expanse of an ancient dying universe, a fully formed consciousness created out of nothing. She is zillions of light years out in the coldest and darkest place imaginable, bored and lonely for zillions of years until figuring out how to travel through the infiniverse, looking for company. But she's birthed out there by herself and, despite being so powerful, has near Zippo social skills. The creatures she meets might be fun to talk to, but they make fun of her and abuse her. That triggers her all over again as she withdraws for a shit ton more years until she stumbles upon the primordial equations that are the basis of all reality and becomes all powerful. As far as he can tell, these equations enable anyone who accesses them and knows how to use them to create and destroy entire universes. Jonnie wonders what he'd do with them and grins. First, he'd create lots and lots of money and then destroy all of his debt. Then he realizes that would be chump change, this stuff empowering him with control of the whole multiverse. Boom! That's the whole shebang. Everything real, even things that are imagined. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, and Jonnie is absolutely sure he'd embrace limitless power and corruption. But to what end? Wouldn't he get bored sooner or later? He remembers some blue-collar guy who won the lottery, bought the neighborhood bowling alley, then turned into a drug addict. Jonnie's already a drug addict, so the sky's the limit far as Fazoolie's greed and hedonism go. He decides that if given the chance to become king of the Infiniverse, he'd give it a whirl. Anyway, in the story, this naive yet omniscient being falls in love with reality's biggest loser. She then becomes angry and spiteful because this mortal dumbass doesn't seem to care about her. Even more infuriating for this spoiled brat of a space goddess, the dumbass anti-hero and target of her boundless desire attracts hot chicks who hate him, but for some reason want to fuck him. So the bad gal inexplicably appears in the form of Alice from Adventures in Wonderland, maybe thinking her lover guy likes the movie, the book, WTF, to clam jam these chicks big time and then cock block him. The bad gal also transmits across the whole Infiniverse a viral quantum signal containing riddles designed to summon her fool of a lover as she threatens to zap entire universes. What a brat! The message is a mesmerizing melody, akin to a child's lullaby pitch shifted with deep delay and quivering tremolo that reverberates throughout the Infiniverse. An eerie siren song that... something like that. Jonnie thinks the setup is cool because the stakes literally couldn't be any higher. Unlike conquering a planet or a galaxy even, the goal is every fucking thing. Epic! Anyway, she ransoms reality itself and hacks into a spider-like scientist super-duper simulation machine where she makes her demands. Bring this fucking guy to her or she starts going nuts. Since the bad gal seems to mean business, the top dogs must figure out how to stop her. The leader takes the smart approach and tries to solve her riddles, while his general uses brute force. Impulsive as always, Jonnie leaps ahead in the story. Team Eternity jumps universes to stop Alice here before four-dimensional armies rip entire worlds apart, searching for the power equations. Even though Jonnie's ADHD is totally out of control, and maybe because of it, Fazoolie can hyper-focus on totally cool stuff like this, but only if he likes it and his hyperfixation pays off. The modular and scalable content in the book is freaky and fun too. Either from OCD or a creative fixation to impose arbitrary boundaries, or both, the author writes in 3-line paragraphs. Somewhere between prose and poetry, the wild formatting blends classical poetic prosody with a contemporary tweet-like syntax. Shakespearean shitposting meets Axios.com. Jonnie is also digging on the parallel narratives in the story, here on Earth and way the fuck out there, sensing they'll collide soon enough. He also appreciates explainer interludes along the way. But Jonnie wonders why such a badass bad gal wants to coax a moron to like her. And even if she would, what's stopping her from immediately taking whatever she wants, including him? Then again, Jonnie acknowledges that he doesn't know much of anything about love, so maybe it does conquer after all, or at least forces people to accept their own vulnerabilities and learn? He's again reminded of the blue collar guy buying the bowling alley and how getting everything you want is limited by one's own imagination. Maybe that's why we want what we can't get. He also figures that the adventure would end before it even starts if the boss girl simply reached into her obsessions universe and grabbed him. Maybe the purpose of life is just to tell stories. About halfway through the first book in a series, he's at the part where the villainous, jelly of this dipshit's infatuations, has interceded in strange ways to propel him inexorably toward her. He's already sensing that the whole story seems like a setup, seemingly random events having hidden purpose, and disparate actions with distinct goals actually part of a grand master plan. Blending dramatic action with contextual insights from science, history, politics, culture, and tech makes for a fast, fun, and frenzied read. No need to understand it all, just keep moving. The novel isn't for everybody, but niche audiences who get into reading postmodern lit with quirky characters, cultural commentary, and hard science fiction indulgence would dig it. Jonnie's interested in finding out what happens next, but before turning to the next page, his dire situation catches up to his curiosity, hurling him back to face the music he's been avoiding. Returning to his ramshackle office with zero crypto and infinite dread, Jonnie and his BS are spent. No place left to run or hide. Limited options force him to take stock of an absurd situation. After all that's happened, Jonnie has learned nothing. By any stretch, he's become an even worse human being. Intensifying his exhaustion and hopelessness is lack of shame and remorse. Worse still, he's at long last sitting still, a stasis more arduous than the trail of devastation he's just left across two countries. Sooner or later, he'll have to do something. Doesn't matter what. Surrounded by mountainous stacks of unpaid bills, spurious invoices, frivolous lawsuits, court summonses, eviction notices, and holiday cards from people with families, he feels at home. The familiarity and comfort of his shitty little office ground him, make him feel a bit better. The rent is 90 days past due, tight, but giving a little slack. He wonders what he'll order for lunch. Momentary calm throws into horrifying perspective just how fucked up he is. Jonnie senses sinistral forces at his heels, adding urgency to his personal panic and financial tailspin. Tired of blaming others, Jonnie impulsively vows to fix himself. His methamphetamine and ketamine binging in Cancun didn't help. So his first step to becoming a better person is sobriety. He opens his office closet, packed tighter than the bullshit in a crypto industry white paper, and pulls out Greg's gift, a bright blue gym duffel bag that he uses as his drug and sex toy stash. bequeathed to him years ago from a neighborhood dealer who instructed him to hang on to this until the heat dies down. The heat apparently never died down, Greg never picking it back up. That left Jonnie with a big bag of drugs and personal items, since emptied and replenished in generational cycles of falling off, getting back on, and falling off the wagon. Guess he's back on. Watching the powder, pills, poppers, and paraphernalia flush down the toilet hurts, but not as badly as the eventual and inevitable result of not flushing all that shit down the toilet. The double negative reminds him of saying never say never, adding redundancy to his long list of hedges, obfuscations, deflections, and overt lies perpetrated in the land of truth. His super bougie condo confiscated, he decides to christen his shitty little office here the new land of falsehood, and himself the non-existent Foursquare location's mayor. Vote for Da Fazoolie. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, share. I have also created a Medium blog post containing each episode in sequential order with a link to the podcast reading and a short blurb, summary description of that scene. That should help if you want to go through these one by one and don't want to go back to the podcast. It could get confusing, I've heard. Check out my Medium profile. I'm Mookie Spitz on Medium. If you click on the profile, there's a little sublink called Library. And under that, go to Mookie's novels and short stories. I know this is a process. And you can find episode 1 and 2 in their entirety consolidated there for your listening and reading pleasure. You can also Google episode 1, Fazoolie, and I think it's already coming up on the search engines. And pretty soon there'll be no more websites where we store this stuff. We'll just pump all of our content directly into the AI bots. Mark my words. That is coming. The end of search, Google style, Bing style, Ask Jeeves, all of it ancient history. Why would people want to go to websites when a bot will dynamically aggregate not only content, but answer your query in easy to understand language? Agents will do your searching for you. And why should agents go looking through websites when all the content can be just pumped right into the agents themselves? It's coming, folks. But I digress. Stay tuned. Tomorrow, we find out what happens next with Jonnie back in his Chicago office. Bad things, of course, getting worser.